We're out here.
Y'all miss us? We back. We back like faux flex on the Cadillac. Oh man. But shit, I feel like we're stirring the pot up a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
And there's a lot to talk about. Some volatile things happening around the world of basketball right now.
Oh, for sure. Especially with this whole Shaq shit going on.
Man, when I saw it, I'm telling you, I kind of didn't know where I was to recap, what Shaq and Candace Parker and Dwayne Wade were getting into. For those of you who didn't see it or hear about it, they were talking about having to defend. It was Jokic specifically, but it was talking about having to defend centers who could shoot in this era of guarding the three ball. And Shaq was very deliberate in kind of being stubborn, not wanting to understand why, you can't just show and hedge on a pick and roll anymore.
Oh yeah.
And Candace was getting gassed up by old boy, I don't know his name, but saying, we're getting real deep in the X's and O's talk. It's like, no, this is pretty basic, but I guess it, for the casual fan, it might be a little bit of some X's and O's, I guess. But anyway, and so Candace was basically saying, you need to switch on the pick and roll because you're going to get killed by corner threes if you do double team or defend the pick and roll from a traditional standpoint. And then the rotation can start to show first. And so then you'll just, when they kick it to the center, you have the next guy over rotate, and then you rotate as a team. We've all done shell drill if you've played basketball before. We were doing shell drill in college. Like, apparently people still don't know how to play basketball and rotate defensively. But which is ridiculous that people still need to know that. But
and play the lanes. I feel like playing the lanes isn't that hard, especially today.
Right.
You can play the lanes easy, but I digress.
So yeah, anyway, so Shaq, was like, well, why do we have to do that? Why I won a championship. Why does the center have to, switch, or, why do we have to guard the center shooting the three? And Candace was kind of dumbfounded, like, why isn't Shaq getting this? And apparently people...
She really was, though. And she kept looking to Dwayne Wade for, like, clarity. Like, am I making sense or not?
He's like, don't look at him. So, and Candace was... People on Twitter were, like, just queening Candace. Like, oh, man, she knows her stuff. She put Shaq in his place. She schooled Shaq. And like I said, I'm kind of on the fence in between, but I can see both their points. But I want to talk about this on the pod because it is more of an X's and O's standpoint. And, I did send you the clip. Well, how did you feel watching that? It was pretty awkward, but regardless of that, like, what did you feel? Who are you siding with a little bit on that?
Oh, shit. I don't know. I guess I'm somewhere in the middle too. Pause. Because I can see Shaq's points as far as, like, he did win a championship, and then, he won 4, and he was telling Dwayne Wade this and that, and he's like, well, didn't we win a championship? Didn't we win a championship doing that? And I get
It's lazy.
Oh yeah, and I get that, but I hate that rebuttal. That doesn't necessarily mean everything, in my opinion. As far as, like, making that statement and for him to, like, clarify his point, because he also had players on those sides that were able to make up for what he lacked defensively. And he's not going to get that. I mean, I think it's going to be hard to tell Shaq that, to be honest with you. But also too, I think you made a great point, like, off air when we were talking earlier today, that you were saying that, well, Shaq never had to guard anybody at the 3-point line, and I agree with it. He didn't. It's totally different eras, and I think it depends on which Shaq you would take. Because, I mean, we put Shaq in high regards. I mean, hell, if it wasn't for Jordan, I think we have Shaq as one of the greatest players of all time, or the greatest player of all time for how dominant he was. But I would say it just depends on which Shaq you take. If you take Orlando Shaq, maybe his foot speed would be able to keep up with that kind of, like, centers being able to shoot threes and being on the perimeter and whatnot. But since that Shaq didn't win a championship and went to he did go to the finals but didn't win his chip, I think we got to throw that Shaq out of here because he's talking because he brought the whole championship now, so we have to bring that Shaq in there. That Shaq is definitely not going to be able to stick with anybody at the perimeter. So him saying the things he was saying can't really make sense because there's no way he's guarding anybody. He's not guarding Giannis like one-on-one, especially in open court. He's just not. And that's not even a shooter. But I guess we should talk about the Joker. I don't think he's gonna guard Joker either because Joker's a little bit more free, like more of a freer center as far as like he's able to hit threes. He's not gonna kill you with foot speed, but he may be faster than that championship Shaq as far as like if he's on the perimeter.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much lateral quickness 01 Shaq had on the Lakers. Like he really is guarding like Todd McCullough or Ben Wallace. Like he's not guarding Sheed on the 3-point line. Like he never had to do that. If you go back and watch those like old games of like vintage Lakers, Shaq, I'm not saying he struggled because he's a good defender, but he's a rim protector. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that like he's not a great perimeter defender. The dude is a freak mountain. So like, but at the same time, like Vlade Divac could like get mid-range like points off of him. Little runners and stuff, like
sure, yeah.
kind of that point center type of player.
Well, look at Chris Webber. I mean, Chris Webber was a forward, but he did play. Shaq did guard him at times.
And like if he would struggle guarding the mid-range, and he would because he doesn't have the foot speed to stay in front of people laterally.
Sure.
Again, which is fine, but so he never had to guard anyone remotely close to Jokic, like at all. And so I think he is being stubborn.
We're talking about Jokic, who's not even athletic. So
right.
In him, and he's like I said, like you mentioned, he struggled somewhat against against big men that can move and had some foot speed to him. And in that era, like in his era. So imagine today where more of the centers are technically wing players now, as they want to claim there's no positionless basketball, but there is positionless basketball now. And I think Shaq, in a sense, is a position player. He's not necessarily. You're not going to put Shaq out in the wing. You're not going to put him in the 3-hole or anything. You do none of that with him. So.
Right, and so that for me, I think it's a lazy rebuttal by Shaq saying, "I have championships," so you can't tell me otherwise. I think that's extremely lazy.
No, for sure. I mean, because the Warriors have have 3 off of playing the style of basketball he's talking that doesn't exist.
Right. And so like, how would I just feel like, but at the same time with what Candace is saying, and I thought it was kind of a funny punchline for me watching the video, or watching what happened when he said, okay, why can't you just show and then hedge and then pre-rotate, from that weak side defender. And then, cause he's like, you have to take away easy passes. And then she goes, okay, but Shaq, if you do that, then they're just gonna, like I said, she's like, you can hit that pocket. Like you have dudes now in this era who can hit that pocket passer from across the court. And then you're going to get killed by the corner 3 because they're going to be able to find an open shooter. He's like, well, what happened to rotating? What happened to guarding your man? Like just doing the fundamentals of rotation. She goes, but Shaq, like they're going to find an open shot in the corner. He goes, what did the Nuggets shoot tonight? She's like, it got real awkward. And then she's like, it was like 32%. So it was an off night. So it's kind of like her whole point was moot because they lost or they weren't shooting well that game.
Right.
And so Shaq had a point based on the analytics in that regard. But I feel like, and then we were talking before this, what is a good 3-point shooting percentage? Because at some point it'll level out. But if a team's going to shoot, dozens of threes and only hit 30%, are you going to live with that? Because in this era, people just be chucking.
No, because a dozen is only fucking like 3 threes.
I mean,
3% from out of 12, it's like 3 threes.
So yeah, if a team, I mean, I don't know how many threes you'd have to average per game, to catch up percentage wise, but it's a philosophy thing. You know what I mean? Are you gonna give up like you're going to give up 3-point shots in this era regardless, but who do you want shooting those threes? Like, obviously, if you swing it around the horn, and then like I've been watching the Clippers lately, and they swing it over to Lou Will. Lou Will has a decent look, but you rotate, and then he swings it to Marcus Morris, who has wide open three in the corner. Marcus Morris might hit 3 out of 7, or I don't want to say he's going to shoot 50% from there, but he's going to probably shoot around 40%. So is that a shot you don't want to keep doing the rotational things and then giving up a corner 3 to Marcus Morris? Or are you willing to let Jokic just bomb 15 3-point shots kind of open off of a pick and pop because the center won't switch? It's a philosophy thing. Like, would you rather have Jokic shooting 12 threes or like role players who probably are designed to just shoot threes in the corner wide open? Like, it's kind of a philosophy thing.
Oh, for sure. Well, out of any of them, I'd rather have Jamal Murray shoot threes than any of those other players you named. But no, I don't know. I guess my whole thing with leaving someone wide open and analytics playing a role in all this shit, I don't know. I'm not really one for it. I mean, yeah, I guess numbers wise, it's cool. I mean, it sounds fun to the casual fan that doesn't know much about basketball. But I still think it has a lot to do with strategy. And I'm talking about, I understand Shaq's point, and I just feel like Candace was more going off analytics and more than anything, and just in today's game, because there people are way better shooters and way better passers in the sense where they could thread the needle and get that ball there, falls. But I don't know. Sometimes I just think it is what it is. It's a miss or make league. Either you're on. If you're not, you're not. Like, that's just how I feel about it. And I feel like Shaq has a good point, but I also feel like Candace has a good point. I mean, I guess really just pick your poison on how you want to defensively go about it.
I mean, I feel like I think for me, analytics don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth. I think I've seen plenty of people cherry pick analytics to prove their point or disprove someone else's point. And I think analytics is somewhat of a dangerous game because if you go too far down, win shares and percentages here and there, and certain things, you got to look at the eye test at some point because we talk about like LeBron's field goal percentage. I mean, if most of the shots you're seeing LeBron take are like layups going off a pick and roll or easy kind of created like fast break points, his field goal percentage is going to be higher than Kevin Durant, who's shooting contested jumpers. And so, I think analytics, they just, like I said, they don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth. And Candace digging into analytics, but then, and then being disproven by analytics is sort of like, it's a funny game, but Twitter was buzzing about her putting Shaq in his place. And,
and I think that's more like the younger kids. I don't think she did. Right. I mean, I do think Shaq would know, and whether or not Shaq played these two different eras and whatnot, I still think Shaq would know. I just, like I said, I do hate using that as a point of him having championships. That does prove that he knows somewhat of what he's talking about on how to get over the hump. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just feel like you got to stick to some defensive philosophies, and I think that all work itself out. Whether or not people are great shooters, I mean, it's the NBA. Everyone's good, so I mean, you got to just live with whatever knocks down, honestly. But I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah, and for me, one last point on this is what Shaq was saying, and just kind of seeing how stubborn he was, and not kind of wanting to budge. I mean, he was sort of asking the question, just like in general to like as a talking point at first, but then he kind of got personal with it a little bit and was like, okay, but blah blah blah. But it kind of made me sort of self-reflect, because I am an old head. I think late 90s, early 2000s basketball was like its purest form. That's when I was a student of the game through and through, and this is an entirely different era. And after my playing days, I took a few years where I like didn't want to watch the NBA. I thought it was ridiculous. All the 3-point shooting, all the soft calls, just the style of play has completely changed. Ironically, which would have fit my game better. So I could be making some bread in the league if I was born 5 years later. But, so just watching Shaq kind of made me self-reflect, like, damn, like I don't want the game to be like this, but at the same time, like the game is like this. So it's a live or die by the three, league, like you said. And, which I don't think is a great brand of basketball because everyone's replicating that Warriors style. The thing is they don't have like 3 of the best shooters on the planet to do that, but everyone wants to do that. So,
and great roll shooters too. I mean,
right. Even Iguodala could like wet 3 balls. You know what I mean? Like the only dude like who couldn't shoot was Sean Livingston on that team, pretty much.
As far as threes go, yeah. I mean, he had a
nice midi
range game.
That little pull up midi was deadly when he would like go right to that short corner.
Post, yeah, he was just so much taller than most point guards guarding him.
And people who know me, I'm not a huge Curry fan. Full disclosure, I want people to act like a grown man on the court, but. And I used to say this back in the day. I'm like, man, I would shot like when I played 2K, like I'm sitting Curry. I'm playing Sean Livingston at point guard with Clay. Like that's a traditional kind of squad because I thought Sean Livingston was kind of a perfect complement for that team back then because then that second unit was basically a starting 5 in the NBA, in my opinion. So
no, for sure.
But yeah, I just thought like that whole Shaq Candace situation was funny. It was funny to watch.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. And, I mean, they're both great basketball minds, but I just think they both live in 2 different eras right now.
And then Dwayne Wade was caught in the middle of it. Just like,
he didn't want he wanted nothing to do with it. He was just trying to be like, but yeah, and I don't blame him. I mean, hell, Shaq's your man. Candace is, the woman on the show. So you don't want to make her feel alienated or degrade her. And perfectly fine. Like I said, I just think there's just 2 different perspectives. I don't think there's not necessarily a right or wrong in that sense. I mean, I feel like Candace is looking at more of because she's a finesse player and she's a post player. Mm-hmm. So she's looking at more as an aspect of that. Shaq was just dominant. I mean, it's Shaq. And he's a champion, so he's going to put his 2 cents in. And like I said, he's won, so he's going to make it known that he's won. He's going to let you know, well, that's just how I got it done. So I don't see why it shouldn't be used throughout the whole league still. So, I mean, that I can see both points. End of the day, I mean, numbers, analytics are kind of bullshit here and there. I mean, hell, what's the guy Daryl Morey fucking said James Harden's a greater scorer analytically than Michael Jordan was. We all know Michael Jordan was just a fucking beast, and he didn't need the 3-point ball to average 30 a game as a career. So, and if you just put that into play, if he did, it'd probably be even way more crazier to think of what he could have done.
Well, and also too, it's sort of like assists. If you're a player who has the ball in their hands, if you play 90% of the game and you have the ball in your hands 95% of the time you're on the court, you're going to get a bunch of assists. So like,
oh, for sure.
It's, stats are they're just dumb. Like in a sense, in a vacuum, I think they can tell certain truths, but not the whole truth. Like, is someone a good playmaker because they get 8 assists a game? Not that hard to just swing it around the horn, to the open guy or something, and get an assist. But so yeah, I think analytics in that sense are dumb. Do you feel like defensively the philosophy? Do you like having just a bunch of hybrid, like everyone can switch, just positionless, like it's just everything is switch defense now? Or
now it sounds nice in theory, but there's always going to be a mismatch somewhere, and that's the thing about it. Like unless we're all 6'10" and we're all athletically to do the same thing, I think that's different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like Curry's for sure a mismatch every time to a bigger guard.
Anyone who's not laterally elite.
Exactly. Especially even for someone like Russ. Like Russ is definitely going to take advantage of Curry. Granted, don't get me wrong, Curry goes back at him too. and he's just probably just as smoother off the dribble like than Russ is. So I mean, he's gonna get Russ off balance. But no, I mean, whether or not, I mean, this is how you look at it. Just because one has 30, one has another 30, that still cancels each other out. Unless you have other teammates that are putting up the numbers too to, you know, to let the game go on. But I think it's, you know, it just depends. I I do, in my opinion, I do believe there still is a place for at least a big man as far as defensively. Like there's obviously a rim protector. I mean, that's why Rudy Gobert is in the All-Star game. Look at Dwight Howard. I mean, back in his heyday, he definitely was a rim protector. That's the reason why he won so many Defensive Player of the Years. Today, yeah, the center's not really necessarily used as much, and more, and the four is definitely more of like a 3-point shooter specialist or
The stretch four.
let's go. I do believe there's got to be some way to like incorporate that, unless like I said, you're all just 6'10" and just athletically inclined. Because look at the Nets. Perfect example. They've won games now that they got on a little streak, but they're all really bad. They're still the bad defensive team.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be mismatches somewhere.
Well,
a mismatch on defense.
Well, yeah, my thing is, if you do want to switch everything defensively, whether you're a good or bad defender, like look at the Clippers, for example. If Lou Williams is guarding a point guard, and then there's just any screen he can guard. I was watching that Clippers Celtics game, and he's guarding Peyton Pritchard, I believe his name was, or he's guarding Kemba, and then Kemba sets a screen. And then he switches on to like Jason Tatum, who's 6'8" So it's like, even if Lou Williams isn't a bad defender per se, that's a mismatch regardless. And so I feel like by switching now, you're literally handing the offense a mismatch. And so either that way where you have, I mean, the traditional one is a guard gets switched out, and a big man starts to guard him, and then they could just break him down, draw a defender, kick it. But now you're seeing like the LeBrons, the KDs, the bigger wings, because everyone can handle the ball and shoot threes now, isolating the smaller dudes, and then they go to work, and it creates the same kind of matchup problems. And so when Shaq is saying, why can't we just have the simple, the old traditional defensive principles where you hedge hard, or you show, and then the guard can replace, and if they kick it back to a pick and pop situation with a shooting 5, you have the weak side help rotate. When the swing comes, the other person rotates and you find a guy. Like, again, I don't know why that dude was saying like, oh, this is like super deep X's and O's. It's shell drill straight up. But like that works because then you have the ball out of the star player's hands in a sense, and you force the offense to move the ball in an era where everyone wants to put the ball in the basket. And so you hope that the other team will be selfish and won't be patient enough to pass up good shots for the great shot. And then, like you said, everyone can score basically at this point. So you're going to have to live with something. You have to give up something. That's why I don't know if Shaq could articulate it like that. He kind of, I want a championship, but I feel like that's more so what he was trying to say. And Candace was, maybe more pro, just switch everything and be positionless. And so it's philosophy, but I just thought it was interesting that, thank you for listening to my rant, my TED talk.
No problem. I totally get it. But yeah, I want to go back to this assist thing, which I think might lead us back to our segue to another topic. How you said like assists or like analytics and assists are definitely like not really telling the whole truth. I mean, hell, the glove, Gary Payton, there's been people that quoted saying that if he passes you the ball and he tells you to shoot and you don't, you're messing up his assist. So he's technically trying to get his assist. The same thing with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is definitely someone that people don't like. The reason they don't get along with him because he's such a hard ass for like, if he passes you the ball, he wants you to make that shot. And if you don't, he's not going to give it back to you because he wants to bring his assists up too. And Yeah, I just think that's why analytics are kind of somewhat misleading a lot.
Well, and let's talk about the Suns team because you bring up a great point. I think Chris Paul, you're preaching to the choir. I think he's stat hunting. I think I saw one game earlier this season. He had like 14 assists or something at half. He's well on his way to like a record kind of a game. And then you see the second half start off and a couple dudes miss some threes. And, he's hunting for those assists. Like, he's purposely only wanting like you to shoot off his pass. He doesn't want that hockey assist, that relay pass. And as a former point guard, I think that's selfish. I think you should be wanting to create the best shot available for your team. Now, he may have a point like, hey, Devin Booker, let's just use for an example. I'm kicking it to you. Let that bitch fly because I'd rather you shoot it off my pass, with good timing and everything, than you passing to Cam Johnson or something and then him shooting. And that might be a bad example because he can shoot threes. But so like Chris Paul, he might have an analytical perspective from it. Like you're going to be better off hitting from off my pass than giving it to a lesser shooter if you draw coverage. But
right.
That's a selfish point of view. And that's like with Russ, averaging a triple double initially, he's leaving his dude defensively to just go hunt for rebounds. And so why are we putting such a crazy significance and value on stats when the game is just it's so much more wide open? And like you were talking about Gilbert Arenas earlier off air, saying he brought up, when he would kick it to somebody, they have to make that business decision. Do I let this fly, or am I going to impact my shooting percentage? And I think, I get it. It's a business, but like it's there. That's not the purity of the game. You know what I mean?
That's what sucks. Business, you bring business into something that we love, and it just deteriorates the whole thing a bit. But yeah, no, I agree that Chris Paul definitely does look for his stats. But I can't blame him. He is good at what he does, and this leads on to our next segue. Is man, all you Devin Booker fans out there, they still beat the Lakers while he got ejected. They don't tell me they played for Book. They didn't do that shit. Chris Paul's just a really actually great leader, and he doesn't want to lose to one of his best friends, LeBron. He doesn't want to. It's been seen plenty of times throughout the league. When they were with Houston and that whole Rondo situation, that's because he didn't want to listen to LeBron when LeBron was trying to pull him back. Chris Paul's competitive. Chris Paul's going to do his thing. And another thing I want to bring up about Gilbert Arenas, he said that why was Devin Booker snubbed? He should have been on the All-Star list. No, he shouldn't have. And his point was like, well, why is the dude on your team, not like on here, and then you got snubbed? I'm like, because in my head, I'm saying because Chris Paul's the better player. Chris Paul's the reason that they're even number 2 right now. Like Chris Paul's just that reason. You take Chris Paul off this team, guarantee you the Suns go back to being 8, 9, 10. They're not being anywhere near a playoff team that they are right now. And Chris Paul is just that guy. I think he will probably go down as he'll be another John Stockton, in my opinion, as far as like great point guard, just couldn't get a championship. And the funny thing about it is we're probably going to be behind John Stockton in the sense that John Stockton at least went to the finals twice and lost to Michael Jordan.
Right. If you're going to lose to anybody, that's who you lose to.
No, for sure.
I just got done kind of bashing Chris Paul for stat padding and
that's fine.
Being so fixated on.
He does do that. That's what I'm saying. I agree with that. But as great as he is still, for him to lead this team to where they are and to lead that Oklahoma City team last year to the playoffs, because no one expected them to even make the playoffs. And then on top of that, he led the Rockets to the Western Conference Finals. It wasn't James Harden. He might have did it once, but Chris Paul got him there. And once Chris Paul left, that Rockets team never seen anywhere near the Western Conference Finals with James Harden anymore.
Right. Yeah. And so I just got done bashing him, but he's a terrific player. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna be adamant in shooting those shots because he's gonna put you in a position to succeed. He wants you to shoot it, whether it's for his own personal reverence or not. He makes his teammates better. He's a through and through floor general. He plays defense. Talk about bright players in knowing exactly how to dissect a defense, whatever's thrown at him. Like he's a true point guard, and he's old, but he's still, it's sort of like that old man at LA Fitness who can still score on super athletic kids. He knows angles. He knows where his teammates need to be, where they're going to be, which is why when Booker leaves, the Suns don't skip a beat because he's not the engine that makes that team go. It's Chris Paul. And yeah, Chris Paul makes everyone around him better because he's a true floor general at the point guard position who is not a scoring minded point guard, but can score. And so he's going to manufacture points elsewhere when Booker leaves.
And if we want to go to analytics being fucking blinding, just because Devin Booker leads the team in scoring doesn't mean anything. He's led this team in scoring multiple years, and he couldn't get them anywhere sniffing. Couldn't get them to like 20 wins at times. Couldn't get them sniffing the playoffs. So don't sit here and tell me Devin Booker deserves to be an all-star or he deserves to be the team's leader. He's not that. Leading the team in scoring doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player on the team. It just means you're getting the ball more, you're making a little bit more shots than anyone else.
And I saw that on Twitter. Everyone was like, the Lakers lost to the Suns even after their best player left the game. And I thought to myself, I don't think he's the best player on that team.
He's not the best player on the team. He's probably the better scorer. And that maybe, because if Chris Paul really wanted to score and go out there and just chuck, I guarantee you he'd probably make just as much as Devin, but he probably average just as much as Devin Booker's averaging.
Which is what is it? About 26?
25, 26 around there. And then Chris Paul, I think right now is averaging 17, maybe 18. And we're on his average, but I feel like if he wanted to, he definitely would average way more if he really wanted to, but that's not how his game is. That's not what he's been trying to do. He's going to try out there and get a win, and he's going to try to be efficient. He's going to try to get his assists up too. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're converting points over. But that just goes to show you, like, he's still that guy, in my opinion. I still think he has a lot to offer this league. And I think that, I don't forget what pod we talked about it on, but I think he needs to be mentioned up there along with LeBron James, with someone who's able to keep, whether or not he's had injuries and shit like that, but he's still able to maintain this high performance at this long in the league. And he's the same age as LeBron, but he's not been in the league as long. He's still 2 more years behind LeBron, but that's still saying something. There's not too many people that we see play 15, 16 years in the league and still be this efficient. I mean, hell, God bless Kobe Bryant, but right when he started, like, his Achilles, he really just deteriorated after injury after injury. And God forbid anyone to have an Achilles injury, because even though you see Kevin Durant doing the things he's doing, that's totally different. Kevin Durant was built slim, and he came back perfect. Like, and he's just such a great shooter. His game has not changed at all. So that was just a side tangent, but yeah, I think Chris Paul needs to be mentioned more, and like someone who's actually has longevity and able to perform at this high level and lead teams to become the number 2 team in the Western Conference Final, in the Western Conference. I think that says something. That says something about Chris Paul more than it says about Devin Booker.
Yeah, it shows that their role. I mean, would you rather have 18-10 or 26-3? Since this is an analytical episode in a sense, the point guard is kind of impacting the team a little bit more. And then I think even at this stage in his career, I think Chris Paul is still a good defender. I don't know how good of a defender Devin Booker is. I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but his primary role is scoring, and that's cool. But you can get your 40 or 50, but like scores are in the hundreds now. Like you need other players to be able to score, and you need someone who can get them the ball. And Chris Paul can utilize DeAndre Ayton as well. So it's not like Devin Booker and Ayton were Kobe, Shaq. It was like John Stockton and Shaq. You know what I mean? Like if Devin Booker's not necessarily like a playmaker like that, because he's making plays for himself, which again, you need scorers, but there's a lot of Devin Booker fans here in Arizona who think the way they talk about it is he's like a top 5 shooting guard in the league.
Oh no, I think who brought that up? I think Shaq asked, "Is Devin Booker a top 5 player in the league?" And I think it was somewhat within that same, not like a little bit probably before, after the Candace debate. Wayne Wade was like, maybe 10.
Right.
There's definitely 10 more players better than Devin Booker. And if he was have to be an all-star reserve, in my opinion, there's fucking 30 more players better than Devin Booker.
And I even think he's in the top 10 maybe of shooting guards only.
No, right.
And talking players, I don't even see him anywhere near top 5, let alone maybe top 10.
As if.
And that's not a knock on Booker. There's a lot of good players.
No, for sure. But no, I also saw earlier too. I don't know how true this is, but I mean, I guess he might ask for a trade to the Knicks.
Booker?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how true this is. I mean, I just saw like little clips popping up about it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think that'd be a thing, especially since you're number 2 in the West right now.
Yeah, don't fix something that's not broke. I mean, they're playing good basketball right now.
And I understand he's probably frustrated with management and whatnot. He's even spoke about that in the past. I don't blame him. The Suns' management is trash. Every time they find something good going on, they find a way to fucking break it. I don't know why, they just do. But I hope he doesn't leave. I mean, like I said, I'm more of a players fan. I like how players play. I like how the things they do. I like to pick apart things that they do and try to implement in my game. Whether or not I play like for real or whatnot, I still like to do that. So I think it'd be kind of dumb if he were to ask for a trade to the Knicks. The Knicks have nothing going for them, really, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, they have one All-Star in Julius Randle. They're not going to make no noise in the playoffs. I'll tell you that much right now.
Right.
So I think it'd be best for him just to stay, ride this shit out, and go from there. But he's still not the best player on the Sun.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with just being a great scorer, but that's not going to get it done, and obviously
no, for sure. I mean, look at good example I saw today, Mitch Richmond,
throwback.
And literally, he got his chip, ring chasing, was on that Lakers team, and didn't do much at all, just really kind of just sat there. But yeah, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. Was multiple-time All-Star. Now Devin Booker, multiple-time All-Star reserve, in my opinion. But that's your boy. So I don't know. I hope he doesn't leave. I mean, it'd be stupid for him to leave right now, especially when things are kind of looking up to what he wanted them to be. So I hope that doesn't happen, especially for the people of Phoenix. I mean, I think they all deserve some kind of something.
Well, isn't he friends with D'Angelo Russell and Kat? So like they've been wanting to talk about like a reunion or whatever. Maybe he goes and if he ever hits free agency, going to the Timberwolves or something, that would be cool for him to play with his friends. But to go from one dumpster fire to another, especially when that dumpster fire was put out by the fire department with Chris Paul in Phoenix, that seems asinine to ask for a trade to the Knicks. Maybe it's just someone trying to stir the punch bowl with their dong, so to speak.
Right.
But yeah, that would be ridiculous.
But to bring this whole playing up your friends shit, I think we've seen that that doesn't work. It hasn't worked. I mean, if you want to bring up fucking LeBron and Dwayne Wade, that's different. They lost twice. You could say, okay, they won 2 chips, but they lost twice, and supposedly they were supposed to win multiple championships, like more than 2. So I don't think really playing with your friend ever works. I can't think of a time that has where like they actually kind of grew up together. we saw the Russ and Harden thing didn't work out. They're supposed to be boys. It just doesn't work. We've yet to really seen that kind of flourish and work. I mean, we could say I think Durant. This might work in a sense where like, because like I said, Durant's not gonna need the ball as much as most players do. Russ needs the ball in his hand. Harden needs the ball in his hand. I think Kyrie does, but I think he can also play off the ball and is pretty efficient playing off the ball. He's like I said, he's more of a 2 than he is a 1. He has a lot more guard like 2 skills than he does 1, in my opinion. So I think that like we see the transition is easier for him than I think most players would be. But my whole point is I just don't think if that would happen with Booker, I think that'd be the stupidest thing they ever decide, because that's just going to ruin their friendship, or they're not going to want to really fuck with each other no more after that.
Yeah, and I mean, the LeBron, Dwayne Wade, like they're 2 dudes in their prime, top 5 in the league. That doesn't happen all the time.
Probably top 20 of all time, to be honest.
Right. And then Chris Bosh. And then a roster full of dudes who complement them. Like, it's not just about if someone's
Chris
friends.
Bosh is mentioned in like the top, at least top 50, whether you want to do it or not. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I saw something disrespecting Chris Bosh on Twitter. Saying, I don't remember now off the top of the dome, live on the podcast, who they were going at, but they said who was better, like Chris Bosh or someone, and people were kind of throwing some dirt at Chris Bosh. Like, that dude was a monster in Toronto.
Kevin Love?
No,
because I feel like that'd be the only comparison they could really make with LeBron teammate. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think it was something. I don't want to say it was Domantas Sabonis. It was someone current, and they were saying like, are they better than Chris Bosh was? And I was just, maybe it was Julius Randle.
Nice.
Even.
I think people, and I get it. You know, when you're on a bigger stage with LeBron and your talent kind of goes unnoticed where it was, that happens. I mean, look at Kevin Love. Kevin Love was a 26-12 guy in Minnesota. Came over here, went down to 18-8.
Right.
And I mean, that's just what happens when you play with LeBron. But no, Chris Bosh was nice. And then people forget his Toronto years. And if he didn't have the situations with his blood clots and stuff like that, I think he'd probably still put up some, like when LeBron left, I think him and Dwayne Wade, they would have made some noise. Not a lot, but I think they could have scratched the playoffs.
Oh yeah, they would have made the playoffs. They would have, been in games. Like, they still had a roster that was basically the same without LeBron, which, in my opinion, might have freed up Chris Bosh to be kind of the guy a little bit.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Wade to be, have the ball in his hands even more. Like, I feel like the slander, like thinking about it, might have been like, is Julius Randle better than Chris Bosh because he's having a good year? And we talked about Julius Randle, having a good year, but yeah, people are just so quick to forget like how good Bosh was on Toronto, how good Kevin Love was on the Timberwolves. And one of their greatest strengths was their ability to defer and adapt to a really crazy situation, going your whole life basically as the number 1 option to the number 3 option. Imagine how challenging that would be.
Sure.
And then on top of that, think about how Kevin Love was the ultimate rebounder in Minnesota. And then, kind of like this 2-way scoring rebounder. And then Bosh was like a prototypical kind of, new age scoring minded 4, hybrid 4-5. Both of them became spot up shooters with LeBron. So their whole game had to adapt too, which is, incredible that mentally that they could have the fortitude to play at a high enough level. When fans are just looking at the box score and be like, oh, he had 16 and 6. Where's the 25 and 12 guy that, we thought we're like, no, your numbers are going to go down playing with superstars who also rebound the ball and also score. And you don't have the ball in your hands 2/3 of the same time. Like, so let's keep this Chris Bosh slander to a minimum, fellas and ladies out there, And, I'm an old head, shout out to Shaq. But yeah, just, it's frustrating, also with just stats are at an abundance now. In this era, you see everyone getting triple doubles. It's crazy.
Damn, I forgot what the hell I was reading. watching, and they were saying like back then 23 and 5 or 23 and 5, 23 and 8, you're an all-star. And you're one of the top 5 leaders in scoring in the NBA back then.
Yeah.
And like now, I get it. People just you're shooting more threes. People are just better shooters. I mean, people get to the free throw line more than they probably were back then. I mean, it's just what the game is today. A lot of the rule changing has to do with trying to get the casual fan more involved and to see the scoring more than they're trying to see defensive stops and defensive plays. Yeah, they want the big block, they want the pin off the glass and all that kind of shit, but they don't really care to see the steals in between the lane, like the good passing, like the picks. They don't want to see none of that shit. So, yeah. A lot of the rule changing I feel like are due to just wanting the casual fan that just sits around, has a beer, just watches a sport game here and there during the week, just to get involved and like see the oohs and ahs instead of more of like us, the basketball savant that likes to see the little details in defense, little tweaks in offense. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. To bring it all home, when I was watching the Clippers, not to harp on their late game struggles, and I don't want to get super detailed into that, but no, I mean the casual fan wants to see big dunks and splash threes and kind of an up tempo game or whatever. But the Clippers are one of the most frustrating teams to watch because there's moments where they do, from a basketball purist standpoint, move the ball, make that extra pass, another extra pass. Defensively, the rotations, guys are helping out and switching, talking on defense, doing all the things that, the casual fan doesn't see. They're not just
even know.
Yeah, they're not just watching the ball, they're watching other players. But then at the same time, they're so frustrating with how they manage late game situations. And it happened again against the Celtics without Kawhi. And they need to figure it out from a coaching standpoint, because again, Paul George is he's an elite player, as much as we want to call him Pandemic P. But yeah, some of the shots he took down the stretch, I believe they had a graphic up the last last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter in the last 2 games, because we talked about this on the last pod about their struggles. He was like 1 for 12 combined at one point. And I remember the one bucket he got, he drove to the lane, threw up some bullshit layup. It ricocheted off a defender. He got the rebound and just put it in. So the one bucket you got in the last 10 minutes of the final stages of the last 2 ball games is a offensive broken play rebound layup. What kind of shots are we getting down the stretch? Coach T. Lue needs to, okay, you understand Paul George can make any shot on the planet, but why do we have to have him settle for a contested jumper or a tough in the lane over 2 guys play? Like, why can't they figure out how to diagram an offensive set to get your best player an easier shot, instead of hoisting up a shot that he can make that makes it really difficult, in a contested situation? It just made me sick watching them. And like I told you before the pod, I was about to turn it off because of Reggie Jackson's play. And I'm not trying to shit on Reggie Jackson, but this dude, I had a coach, quick rant here to end. I had a coach in college say, I was playing too cool. Take the sunglasses off. Like, that's what he kept saying. And it was more so my sense of urgency, my assertiveness. I was kind of going through the motions, feeling out the game to start the game. But talk about wearing sunglasses in an NBA game. Reggie Jackson, he hits one shot and he goes down and plays D, and he's doing all these, like telling, hey, go over here. He's making all these, fake call outs, trying to have a sense of importance. And then other team scores, they inbound on the ball, and he like kind of rolls it out there, wiping his face, kind of doing the light skin, kind of what's good. And then he gets it. He's dancing. He takes 15 seconds off the shot clock, just playing with his food, going nowhere with it. And I'm literally just staring there. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? and then he ends up like, all right, Paul George, do your thing. You got 6 seconds left, whatever. And then he like, hey, swing it. No, Paul George isn't listening to you, first off, Reggie.
At all.
So you need to come down and just run the offense. Come down, get in your set, pass the ball. So my mind was boggled. And Paul George ends up just hoisting up like contested threes to end the game against Celtics. Clippers, y'all need to figure it out. You blame Doc for a lot of your problems.
It was. I think some of it, most of it, let's not get to that, but I think some of it was.
But now they got to dig deep. I don't understand what's going on over there.
I got the solution for them. They just need to call me. And let's not act like Steve Ballmer isn't one of the fucking top 10 richest men in the world. If he wanted to pay and like break a contract, I'm pretty sure he can afford it. I'm not saying to, but I'm pretty sure he can afford it. And who they need and what they need is a point guard. And I'm gonna bring it up. I think I mentioned it on the last pod is Kyle Lowry. I think that's their missing piece. It's not Russell Westbrook. It's not, I don't know who the hell you want to put there that's been rumored to probably go there. It's none of that. They don't need Bradley Beal. They don't need none of that kind of shit. They need Kyle Lowry in there. That's the person they need. He probably fits that system perfectly than we think about. There was a rumor saying they were trying to get him to the fucking Sixers. I was like, huh? He's not a backup point guard yet. Like maybe give him another 3-4 years, maybe. Right now, I think he has a lot to offer. Like I said, after we saw his play last year in the playoffs, I think he still has a lot to offer a team. And I think that the Clippers are it. They don't have any point guard. You get Patrick Beverly and fucking
Reggie Jackson. Get him out
of here. They got to. Like, at a certain point, you got to realize they don't offer you much. They haven't proven to no one that they can actually get a team somewhere, in my opinion. Reggie Jackson, I mean, what has he done? I can't really name his resume too well. I just know, I mean, his probably best seasons was with OKC probably, and that's when he was coming off the bench. And then Patrick Beverly, I mean,
he's a backup.
Not even if that. I mean, if I'd rather have him, I'd rather have Lou Will than have him, in a sense that at least Lou Will can somewhat start an offense and get it kind of going, or he could take his own shot. Where Kyle Lowry is definitely a true point guard. He's going to set your offense. He's going to get Kawhi and Paul George the right shot that they need. We saw that when he played with Kawhi.
Right.
So I think that's a trade that they should pursue. If you have to, granted, you got not much to give up, but if you could give some money up, do it. Especially if Steve Ballmer really wants to win that bad, I can see him doing it. It's nothing to him. It's not like he's not going to make that back. So yeah, I just think that Kyle Lowry would be the probably best fit for that team and the floor general that they need. They
need something because I don't know if I'm going to watch another Clipper game. I mean, I will because I like Kawhi. He's my favorite player in the league right now. But yeah, Reggie Jackson, you know, I know your doppelganger, Bobby Shmurda, just got out of prison.
And time out. Well, real quick, they're also saying to get Eric Bledsoe there. There's no way I want Eric Bledsoe on this team either.
Like I think Mike Connolly would work. I think Drew Holiday would work.
I think Drew Holiday, I think they're still trying to figure that out over there in Milwaukee.
No, I'm saying, and maybe they're not. I'm not saying they're available, but I'm saying you need a point guard like that. You can't have a Bledsoe or someone who doesn't run, who doesn't actually create offense and set it up. Like they need a floor general there, like a Chris Paul, you know. But I don't know. I think
saw how that worked and that didn't.
Because Paul George and Kawhi are the primary creators for the team. Like you literally watch them inbound the ball to each other, and then Paul George like brings the ball up the court, and then they go into a set where one of them gets the ball. Like, and it's fine them operating in the half court, but they bring the ball up and then create the half court to give it back to them. And there's no point guard creating anything for anyone else, or you know, because Lou Will's a scorer. Reggie Jackson thinks he's a scorer. Emphasis on thinks he is. I know he had like 26 the other night, but dude, you do more than just score.
Yeah.
It's like it's really frustrating. And then Patrick Beverly is not a scorer. And he's not a playmaker. He just plays
deep. He's kind of taking up space.
Yeah. And I think Patrick Beverly is not a horrible player, but I think they need a true point guard, and they're making Paul George and Kawhi basically have to play 2-3 roles each on that team. And I think the addition of Serge Ibaka is huge. I think he's better than Trez. But they need to figure it out down the stretch. And that's when either a pure point guard needs to be able to slow the game down and know what to do, or your superstars need to figure it out. And Paul George has this like deer in the headlights look, but he's trying to mask it with kind of like this stone face, like, I'm good. Like, I don't know if that's just hubris and pure confidence. You can shoot anything you want, but you're not hitting shots. So you have to get yourself an easier bucket, Paul George. Make it easier on yourself. And then coaches put him in a position to where he doesn't have to hoist up step back threes to win the game. Fucking hire me.
Just find a way to get Kyle Lowry there. That's it. I think that'll help. I think that'll solve a lot of their problems.
And then hire us.
Or even Rondo.
Rondo probably would be great too. He's and he can shoot now a little bit too. So, but that's what they need, in my opinion. I know that was a long rant with Clippers, but get Kawhi another ring at all costs.
Oh, for sure. And just to clarify, I know it's March Madness. We ain't gonna talk about any of that. I mean, I don't think we really care too much about college basketball. I couldn't even tell you what teams are what. I just know Baylor is number 2, I think, right now. And Kentucky and Duke are not even in the top 25 last I checked. So we're not going to even mention covering any of this shit. If you guys are looking for that, go somewhere else.
I'll say one thing about Luka Garza, my dog from Iowa.
You know who that is?
Pure post scorer. Dude's a monster. Look him up. Luka Garza. Don't know if he's going to be, they say he might fall to the second round because he has no athletic ability. The dude's going to average 40 overseas somewhere in like 3 or 4 years. But other than that, not a college fan, not here on the podcast. So sorry for those tuning in. But what on the next one? Are we getting into All-Star talk? All-Star's coming up.
For sure. I'm definitely excited about this one. Not because of the time we live in, but just because it's the All-Star game. I'm curious to see how this shit's gonna play out. I'm curious to see what kind of who's gonna get sick, because they're gonna be wilding out there. Atlanta's been open, so these players are not gonna follow protocol. I'm curious what's gonna happen. And if they do, they do. But if not, we're gonna find out a whole bunch of shit, and I think it's gonna make for a good time.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting pod for sure. Can't wait for that as well.
Oh, for sure.
So we're about I think we're over an hour. We were cooking today.
For sure. Well, appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank y'all. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good shit. Tell us how good of a job we're doing or how shitty of a job we're doing.
And next time I might have to bring my tattoos out because he's killing me in the tat game. But tune in next time. It's your boy Quest Sparrow. Streets.